Yugadi for South Indians, and Navroz for Parsis. A really auspicious day to make new beginnings. So what better day than today for all of us to be gathered here to reflect and meditate upon the message of the Gita. On behalf of Taj Hotels, Resorts and Palaces, we welcome you to an evening of melody, rhythm and song with the message of the Bhagavad Gita, the celestial song.
We'll begin with the prayer dedicated to the Bhagavad Gita. Parthaya pratibodhitam bhagavata narayanena swayam vyasena grathitam puranamunina madhye mahabharatam advaitamrutavarshiniim bhagavatim ashtadashadhyayinim ambatvamanusandadhami bhagavad gite bhavadveshinim mukam karoti vachalam panghum langhayate girim yat kripa tamaham vande paramanandamadhavam. We've assembled here today to discuss the Bhagavad Gita and its application in our lives here in Mumbai in 2004. You might wonder, why are we going back to a text that was written 5,000 years ago in a language that is alien even to us now? What is its relevance? To put it simply, the Bhagavad Gita and its relevance in our life is exactly the role that salt plays in food. What is the role of salt in food? You may have the most exotic dishes. You might have cooked them perfectly, and yet without salt, without that dash of salt, the best of food becomes insipid. In the same manner, in the modern world today, we have all kinds of technological gizmos. Science and technology has contributed to our well-being in such a fabulous manner. And yet, when you ask someone, how is life with you? Particularly, in fact, even teenagers, you ask them, how's life with you? And they say, boring. Why should life be boring? This is the best part of maybe the last couple of 100 years that the human being has to enjoy life to its fullest. Why is it boring? It's because this dash of salt, this little bit, kinchit, Shankaracharya says, of the Bhagavad Gita is missing. And so today, let's approach the Gita not with a view of, one more boring subject to study, but with the intention that let's add zest to our life. Let's add enthusiasm, excitement, exhilaration, cheer and dynamism to our life. This is the role of the Bhagavad Gita. Minus the Bhagavad Gita, as the first two words of the Gita say, that Dharma Kshetra, the abode of bliss and serenity, of all that is virtuous, all that is righteous, peace and bliss, that is our inner personality, has been converted into a Kurukshetra. Why Kurukshetra? Because within us there's stress, strife and struggle, tension. People can't sleep. They have depression. All kinds of illnesses come up in this abode of peace and bliss. Why should it be so? Our inner personality has been designed for infinite happiness. This is happening because this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita is missing from our lives. It's not being implemented. We speak words of wisdom, as Krishna tells Arjuna. Arjuna, you speak words of wisdom, but where is the living? Why are you getting into this state? And when there is internal strife, it manifests outside as war, as crime, as terrorism. Weapons of mass destruction are not out there in Iraq. They are within us. And when these weapons of mass destruction start manifesting, you create war outside. Particularly among the elite, particularly among the people who have this heady combination of wealth, power, and influence, it is all the more important that this balancing effect of internal values and enrichment should be there. And it is because of this that in ancient India, in our glorious historical past, every king sent the heir apparent to a rishi to train. Train in what? Training was given in these invaluable principles of life and living. And therefore, you had what is known as the concept of Raja Rishis. They were Rajas, they were kings, they were administrators, they were men and women of influence, power and wealth. But they had also this inner enrichment, internal enrichment. This carried on for many, many centuries, and when, because of degeneration, with the passage of time, they lost their rishihood, they also lost their kingdoms. And therefore we are where we are. Minus the internal enrichment, you cannot hang on to external riches, however much you try. So what does the Gita do? The Gita confers two things that we're all looking for. Number one, yogaha karmasu kaushalam. It enables us, it confers the ability to perform perfect action. Action which will stun the world. The world will stand up in amazement and say, is this human action? And yet, this dynamic, perfect action will spring from serenity of mind. So the second thing that the Gita says is, samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity of mind, inner tranquility and serenity is what leads to perfection in action. Now if you look in the world around us, you find that where there is dynamism, where there is success and prosperity, there is no peace of mind. You look at all the successful people of the world, they're tormented within. They're stressed out. This is not the kind of success that the Gita is speaking of. And on the other hand, there are people who are peaceful, but they don't have the dynamism. They don't have this perfection in action. This combination of perfection in action, dynamism in the external world, which comes as a result of complete, total peace and tranquility within, is what the Gita confers. This is unknown in the world today. And even when you speak of it, people find it difficult to understand the concept, leave alone live it. The closest that the modern world has got is they speak of being in the zone, particularly in the field of sport. In basketball, in cricket, and all these games, they find that the top sports persons sometimes get into what they call as the zone. You see, every sports person goes through tremendous stress. When a cricketer, right now the cricket match is going on, when a cricketer goes out to bat, say Sachin Tendulkar, there's tremendous pressure on him. First of all, there's the roar of the audience that distracts. Then there's pressure from his team to perform. There's pressure, as now, perhaps from the government to perform. And then there is the internal need to break records, to establish milestones. And on top of that, there is sledging from the opponents, particularly when we play Australia. In spite of all that, if a player like Sachin Tendulkar gets into the zone, nothing he does can ever go wrong. He plays magnificently, beautifully, and comes up with a fantastic score. But then, neither the coaches nor the sports persons know how to replicate it, how to get into the zone every time you go out and play. A player of outstanding caliber perhaps gets into the zone 5% of the time, 10% of the time, and that is enough for him to be a celebrity. What will happen if each one of us gets into the zone every time you go out and act? So the Gita gets you into the zone 24/7. Every action that you perform, every time you transact with the world, whatever comes out of you will be perfection. This is the goal. This is what Gita confers. And friends, this is our core strength. As Indians, the spiritual wealth is our core strength. What we need to do is leverage it, utilize it, implement it, put it into our lives. We have a shortage of various other things. Sometimes we have shortage of water, we have shortage of electricity. But there's two things that we don't have a shortage of. Number one, spiritual wealth. Number two, human beings. And this combination can be used to our advantage, and we can become a superpower in the next 20, 25 years if we really put our minds to it. In a way that will astound the world. In its long civilization, India has never conquered other nations by either political clout, economic bullying, or military prowess. But yes, we have conquered other nations with a message of love, with our invaluable principles, our philosophy. And perhaps our day in the sun has arrived now. It's for us to take responsibility, put it into our lives, and become beacon lights for the world to follow. So, what or how does one get into the zone? One gets into the zone by what is known as focus. And the Gita gives us this promise in chapter 9, verse 22.
अनन्याश्चिन्तयन्तो मां ये जना पर्युपासते तेषां नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम्.
I bestow yoga, spiritual enlightenment, and kshema, material success, to those persons who worship me with no other thought. To those always seeking union. So it's the focus that gets you. Whether your goal is a material goal or a spiritual goal, it's the focus that matters. Ananya Chintan means no other reflection, no other thinking. This concept we don't know. All that we know is Ananya Chinta. Chinta means worry. Constantly we're worrying, will I get success, will I not get success? But we're not doing that which will assure us of success. Whatever it is that you want, you must think consistently, persistently, follow your goal to the end. And then the promise held out by Krishna to all of us is, you will get not only material success, but you will get spiritual enlightenment. So you can take whatever you want. What takes us away from the focus? Why is it that we're not able to think consistently of anything? Because the thought of yourself comes and disturbs this concentration. And when this happens, even a person of outstanding caliber like Arjuna, who was a prince, a ruler, a person who had the best of training that the country had to offer, he had tremendous abilities. Krishna showers him with compliments throughout the Gita and says, Bharata Shrestha. Bharata Shrestha means best among Indians. And when he uses that term, he's not just using that term for Arjuna, he means every one of us here. Every one of us has had access to the best that this country has to offer. We've had tremendous opportunities, education, good standard of living and all that. And with all that at the end of it, what are we thinking of? What is it that occupies our mind? Thought of myself. Where am I going to get my next meal from? Where am I going to get one more bedroom in my apartment or one better apartment? When am I going to upgrade my car? When will I get a bigger office? When will I get all kinds of things? The whole thing is centered around me all the time. How can you of such outstanding caliber, Bharata Shrestha, stoop to such levels? And the very first time that Krishna speaks in the Gita, chapter 2, verse 2, he says exactly this.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Kutastvakashmalamidam Vishame samupasthitam Anaryajushthamasvargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna.
O Arjuna, how has this despondency come over you in a crisis? It is un-Aryan, leading neither to heaven nor to fame. When he says this, you see, throughout the Gita, Arjuna, the message is given to Arjuna. But Arjuna is said to be the calf. You know, when the calf never gets the milk that the cow has to give, unfortunately. The milk is taken away by human beings. The cow is only a trigger, an excuse for the milk to be given. Similarly, Arjuna is referred to as the calf because he was the excuse for this knowledge to be given out, but the knowledge was not meant exclusively for Arjuna. It was meant for all of us. In the Dhyana Shlokas, he says, Sudhihi. Sudhi means wise people, all of us here. So this message is meant for all of us. What does he say? Kutastva kashmalamidam. Kashmala means despondency, this despicable behavior. What is despicable about this behavior is, why did Arjuna get into this despondency? Because his thought shifted from the higher thought, from what needs to be done, what is his obligation, to what will happen to me. And this thought of self is a destructive, the most malignant element in our lives. If somehow you're able to overcome this thought of self, excellence will come out of you.